Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. I've been gone for a little while, but I'm back, and I thought, why not get back to basics? Let's do another collection video. This time I want to focus on one of Nintendo's most popular systems. Not the NES, not the Game Boy, not the Super Nintendo, not even the Nintendo Wii. I'm talking about the Nintendo DS. Let's get into it. Now, if you've been to my channel before, you probably have an idea of how I like to go about this. I basically divide my collections into two categories. There is the stack of shame, specifically the games that I have not played, and the pile of pride, the games that I have at least played some of. Most of them I will not have necessarily completed, but I have tried them. So let's begin, as we often do, with the stack of shame. First up in the stack of shame, we have Rhaspody, a musical adventure. This is the DS remake of the classic PlayStation 1 JRPG that is, well, it's what it says on the box. It's a musical adventure. It's a Disney-esque JRPG with princesses, maybe? Probably princes, I don't know. There's music though, they sing. From what I understand, it is a pretty beloved classic game. I never played it on the PlayStation 1. I didn't pick it up as a collector because it is very expensive. It is insane how expensive some of these games are. But I did pick it up on the DS, have not played it yet. However, I did pick up the Switch remaster as part of the NES Classics series, so I'm excited to try it there, and even more so because, from what I understand, we're actually getting the Rhapsody sequels in America for the first time that we never received before. They're coming to the Switch and maybe other platforms sometime this year, so I'm excited to get caught up and finally see what all of us is about. Next up, Mario & Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story. This is part of the classic Mario & Luigi series, of which I can say I've really only played Superstar Saga on the Game Boy Advance. Loved the heck out of that game, it was super charming. I've of course played the original Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo, and most of the Paper Mario games, with the exception of Color Splash on the Wii U, but I will get to that as part of the Wii U experience. But I have a lot of respect for these games because they don't take themselves too seriously. They're just goofy, wacky little romps through the Mario universe, and I'm excited to check this one out at some point. I may go with the remake. I'm pretty sure it was remade either for the 3DS or for the Switch. I don't recall which. But probably I'll pick that up on the newer platform and enjoy it that way. This I picked up as part of a lot of DS games, so it was very cheap and I don't mind having it as a shelf piece. But I'm excited to check this one out either way. Magical Starsign. This looks like such a charming little, I don't know if you can see this. These characters, they remind me of Secret of Mana. Does anybody else see that? Let me know in the comments if you agree. They're just reminiscent of Secret of Mana. I can't quite put my finger on it. I have no idea who the artist is behind this or behind Secret of Mana for that matter. Anyway, this is a magical fantasy sort of game smooshed together with some science fiction. I know basically nothing about it. Looking at the pictures on the back, it seems to be maybe a turn-based role-playing game, which, you know, Chaboy is into that. I think that I would like to check this one out. I don't remember who recommended this to me. Somebody on YouTube probably. Here it is in my collection, so probably should take a look at it at some point. Oh boy. Oh boy. Lunar Dragon Song. So I don't know very much about this game if I'm being 100% honest. Obviously I'm a big fan of Lunar, Lunar 2 Eternal Blue, game arts in general. They made some amazing games, the Grandia series, of course, as well. Lunar Dragon Song is, I don't know. Apparently, it drains your HP in this game anytime you run. Like, just run on the map. I don't mean run from battle. I mean just run. Just move from one place to another faster than walking. Why? Next up, Luminous Arc. Now, if you're new to my channel, and if you are, would you mind subscribing if you like JRPGs and things of that ilk, because it would really help me out a ton. We're creeping towards 1,000. If I could hit 1,000 before my 1-year anniversary in July, I don't know, I would just be the happiest boy in the entire school. So if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, I guess that lets YouTube know that I don't suck. Even if I do and you click like, I mean, it just means so much to me. So thank you in advance. Anyway, if you haven't been following the channel, let me fill you in. Recently, I got really good at video games. I played and completed Fire Emblem Engage. I know, come on. All right, stop cheering. I want to move on with the video. Fire Emblem Engage completed by me. Finished it. Tactical RPG? Pfft. I do them in my sleep now. All right, I used to be scared of tactical role-playing games because they were too hard. But now, the world is my oyster. I can play any tactical role-playing game I want. So I've started picking up more tactical RPGs just because I feel like there's just a whole generation's worth of these games that I've just completely missed out on. So many are so beloved by the JRPG community, like, you know, obviously Final Fantasy Tactics and the Tactics Ogre or Ogre Battle series, to name two notable ones. So I have a lot to catch up on, and I'm really looking forward to it. Luminous Arc is, I believe, one such game, and I don't know a ton about it except it's from Atlas, which means not only is it valuable, which I guess it sort of is, but it's probably going to be, at the very least, pretty good. So looking forward to checking this out at some point. Next up, oh boy, Last Window, The Secret of Cape West. This is the sequel to the Nintendo DS game Hotel Dusk Room 215, which I will be talking about in a little bit. Spoiler warning. But yes, Hotel Dusk Room 215 is just an incredible game. It's a sort of a mix between a visual novel and a detective mystery sort of adventure game. And it does such unique and innovative things with the DS hardware. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's such a cool game. This game is the sequel, and it, I believe, only came out in Japan and PAL regions. One of those rare instances where instead of PAL getting skipped over, it's the US. Sorry to all the PAL folks out there. You guys really got dealt a crappy hand. But this is one of those instances where we felt the sting of that. And I don't know much about this other than the fact that it is a sequel to a very beloved game. You can see here, we've got the PEGI 12 rating. I don't know who Peggy is, and why she thinks she can tell me how old I need to be to play a game, but whatever. Also, I'm not sure if the Peggy rating system is all PAL regions or if that's just like the UK. I'd be curious to hear if that's the case in Australia and other places, but anyway, Last Window, The Secret of Cape West. The sequel to such a beloved game, you might be asking why I haven't played it yet. I don't know. Give me a break. Quit busting my butt. Next on the list is Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Now, if you had told me as a 12-year-old boy that one day I would have a Sonic the Hedgehog JRPG, I would have lost my mind. I was so into Sonic the Hedgehog. Played all the games, obviously, and more than anything, I really wanted there to be a deep and rich storyline in Sonic, so I would kind of craft one in my head. That is, until the Saturday morning cartoon came out. And boy, oh boy, this show with its serialized storytelling just blew my young mind. You didn't see stuff like that in kids' cartoons, in America at least, and in anime, sure, but like in Saturday morning cartoons for American kids, that just wasn't a thing. So this show was breaking new ground, and it had me hooked. I was so in love with it, and when it got canceled on a cliffhanger, I just about lost it. I eventually subscribed to the Archie comics, and I was able to kind of continue to enjoy those characters for a few years beyond that. And I think maybe even those comics are still going to this day, which is crazy to think about. Anyway, so I would have loved a role-playing game with those characters. You know, your Princess Sally Acorn, your Bunny Rabbit, your, what's his name? Francois? Ferdinand, I don't know, he's French, he's a fox. Pierre, I don't know, I don't remember his name. It's been a long time, guys, give me a break. I can say definitively that this is not that game. This is populated with all of the Sonic characters that nobody's that crazy about. You know, I see Amy Rose on the back. I'm assuming that Big the Cat is in here. Of course Big the Cat's in here, right? Big's gonna be here. Oh, nice! And they just seem like characters that nobody is that interested in, but Sega is just really insistent that we need to love them. They keep shoving them down our throats every few years, like, no, really, you guys are gonna love these characters, and if you don't, we're gonna make you regret it. So I don't know a ton about this game other than it's from BioWare, which is a crazy... I would never have put money on BioWare being the developer to make a Sonic RPG, but here we are. I also know that despite it being Sonic Chronicles with a subtitle, there was never a sequel. I guess it didn't do that well. It wasn't rated that highly. It's in my collection. I'm a Sonic fan. What are you gonna do? Golden Sun, Dark Dawn. The first two Golden Sun games on the Game Boy Advance are widely beloved. They are considered JRPG classics, and I think with good reason. I've really only played a small amount of the first one, but even from the bit that I've played, I can tell that it's something pretty special. Now, Dark Dawn, from what I understand, is not nearly as well liked. I don't know why that is, if it's a gameplay thing, if it's a story thing, some combination. I couldn't tell you. I maybe wouldn't have even picked this up if I wasn't the sort of person that would feel incomplete somehow having two games in a series but not the third. So here we are. I've got Golden Sun, Dark Dawn, and once I eventually make my way through the first two games, I will definitely give this one a spin and see if it adds any value to my life, and if not, I'll go back on the shelf. No big deal. Avalon Code. So this is another one that looks really interesting, but I don't have a particularly strong connection to it, other than the fact that it was published over here by Xseed, and they've done some spectacular work, specifically like on the Legend of Heroes Trails series. I love Xseed and the translators in particular that they have working over there, or at least that were in the past. I haven't followed them as much recently, but they do some really, really good work. Anyway, this game, don't know a ton about it, except that you have some sort of magical book, and as you go around the world, you record all of the things that you see, the people, objects, monsters, whatever. You record them in this book, and then you can make changes to their entries in the book to give them like different weaknesses. If you want to make an enemy weak to poison, you can like add that entry to its entry in the book. I don't know, I don't fully understand it, but it's a pretty interesting sort of concept for a game, for an action RPG. I kind of wish that there was an easier way to play this. I'm gonna admit, even as a fervent Nintendo DS collector, it's not the easiest system for me to play. I don't know if it's just my hands are too big or I'm a dummy, but it's not super comfortable. I really prefer playing, if I'm gonna be handheld, on the Switch, but I don't expect that we're likely to see a port or a remaster of Avalon Code anytime soon. So given that I would like to play it, I'm probably gonna have to bite the bullet and just get hand cramps. Dragon Quest VI: Realms of Revelation. This is a Dragon Quest game. I don't know how much more I really need to say about it. This is a remake of the Super Famicom Dragon Quest VI as part of the series of remakes they did, starting with Dragon Quest IV and V. And those games are pretty fantastic, and broadly speaking, I really, really like the Dragon Quest series, what I've played anyway. Dragon Quest I was my very first JRPG as a kid. We called it Dragon Warrior because I guess there was some copyright situation that I didn't know about as a kid and I don't care about as an adult, but here we are. So Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest, my first JRPG, I loved it. I didn't understand what was going on. I never beat it as a kid. I finally beat it as an adult and it was underwhelming, but I mean, it's a very, very old game. Not its fault. Dragon Quest XI is of course just like a masterpiece, and that really kind of re-kickstarted my desire to play these games. So I picked up all the DS entries. I've picked up the 3DS entries as well, and I'll cover that at some point. Yeah, Dragon Quest VI remains the only DS version that I haven't played yet. Well, that's not entirely true. Dragon Quest IX. From what I understand, Dragon Quest IX is primarily a multiplayer game. Maybe I'm wrong, and please correct me down in the comments if I've got this backwards, but my understanding was you would play with other people in your party. Maybe it was an action RPG? I don't know. But regardless, I have not touched Dragon Quest IX. I'm interested in it, but I really would like to get through all of the other games that I haven't played yet. Maybe save this one for last. This multiplayer focus kind of makes me nervous. I don't really know anybody that has a DS anymore anyway that would play this with me. And they certainly don't own the game, so I don't know how likely it is that I'm going to be able to put together a party of adventurers here. I don't know. Let me know in the comments though if I'm wrong. If there is a fairly robust single player, I might be interested in checking it out. I feel like this was just kind of the step before Dragon Quest X where they just went full on multiplayer, and that's just not my style, so we'll see. Let me know if I'm missing out. And finally, in the stack of shame, we have Glory of Heracles. From what I understand, Glory of Heracles is a pretty long-running series, I think going back as far as to the Famicom, of JRPGs based around Greek mythology. Now, I'm not a crazy big fan of Greek mythology, if I'm being 100% honest. I don't know, I know a lot of people like it. It's kind of in vogue, like you got God of War, notably, and maybe some other things, I don't know. But I don't know, I just picture dudes in togas sitting around debating philosophy, and that just sounds awful to me. I know that obviously Glory of Heracles is going to be an action-packed role-playing experience with gods and minotaurs, probably, but I don't know. I'm not super motivated to check it out. If you think I should, let me know, but I have a feeling this is going to be very near the bottom of my list if I don't hear otherwise. All right, we've gotten through the shameful stack. We are ready to pat ourselves on the back a little bit. Let's get into the pile of pride. First up, and why not, New Super Mario Bros. This began the short-lived tradition of Nintendo confusingly slapping new on the front of titles of their games and systems. Not crazy about that. But New Super Mario Bros. Was intended to be a sort of return to form to the 2D Mario stylings from the pre-N64 days, which I'm super there for. I love 2D Mario. I've always loved 2D Mario. I even enjoy playing the New Super Mario Bros. Games. The problem that I have with this and really all of the New Super Mario Bros. Games is that they're way too easy. And I'm not like, you know, big bro gamer, like get good sort of dude. I'm not that great at video games. I may have said earlier that I was. I got really good at video games. I'm not really. But they're just, I don't know. I feel like I have 99 lives by the time I leave the first world in all of these games. And there's no, I don't know, there's no challenge there. What's the point? If I'm not getting frustrated from time to time, then I don't know if I feel like I'm really accomplishing anything. So that's my biggest complaint with New Super Mario Bros. These have kind of evolved to be more multiplayer focused in more recent years, which has been a lot of fun. I've played through the Mario U Deluxe on the Switch with my wife. That was a lot of fun. I think these will always feel a little bit B tier to me just because of the difficulty issue. Final Fantasy IV. This is the 3D remake of the classic JRPG. One of the games that really made me fall in love with JRPGs as a genre. I'd only dabbled a little bit prior to Final Fantasy II or 4, and this really just kind of opened my eyes to what a video game could be. So it has a very special place in my heart, and the 3D remake brings a lot of really interesting stuff to the table, specifically, of course, 3D graphics, which, you know, are like PlayStation era caliber. Not great, but whatever, you know, it was a handheld system with 3D graphics, so I mean, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? But the voice acting, it added voice acting to some of the cutscenes, which was really cool, and it revamped the difficulty system. So I don't know if you're aware of this, you probably are by now, but the Final Fantasy IV that was released over in the US originally as Final Fantasy II was the easy type version that they put out because we were too dumb as Americans to be able to handle the challenge of a real Final Fantasy game. So, ouch, first of all, that stings. But second of all, we weren't ready, probably, for the real Final Fantasy IV anyway. That game was very hard. When it eventually came over here, we all got a taste of how difficult it actually was. Now, Final Fantasy IV, the 3D remake, takes that difficulty and kicks it up an even further notch, and it is a challenging game. So if you are not interested in a very hard JRPG, maybe you steer clear. Also, I don't know if I recommend the 3D remake as someone's first Final Fantasy IV experience. I feel like it's a great supplementary experience, kind of fleshing out the world in some interesting ways. But if you're playing Final Fantasy IV for the first time, I think I would recommend the Pixel Remaster first. Check that out, it's on Steam, and then pick up the Final Fantasy IV 3D remake, which I believe is also on Steam. So even if you don't have a DS and don't feel like playing on a DS, you can still experience it. It's the reason we're all here. Nostalgia. So this is a game, a developer and a publisher that just really knows who their audience is, right? They're not even sugarcoating it. They're like, this is the stuff that your aging brain craves. You want nostalgia, and here it is. We've labeled it for you. Now, this is, again, as you would expect, a very classic JRPG. You've got turn-based battles. You've got an airship basically from the get-go. And it's a very big, sprawling adventure. I'm not all the way through this. I think I got maybe 10 or so hours into it. Kind of fell out of love with it. I was enamored in the beginning hours because it scratched that nostalgic itch for me. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to this someday. Did you play Nostalgia? Did you like it? Let me know in the comments. I'd be curious to hear. Radiant Historia. Radiant Historia is, I would say, a once-in-a-generation game. It is a phenomenal JRPG through and through. And as good as Radiant Historia is, the 3DS remake, I would say, is even better. Some quibbles with the art style notwithstanding, I think that Radiant Historia, whether you play it on the DS or the 3DS, is just a seminal JRPG experience, and you need to check it out. It's a time travel story, which is hard to pull off, but it does it in a way that is very different from a game like Chrono Trigger. You're really kind of progressing down multiple timelines at the same time. And as your main character, who is able to travel through time, you're kind of moving back and forth between these timelines to influence events and move the story towards its conclusion. It is just brilliant storytelling, fantastic character work, just amazing music. It is extraordinary. So any way that you can, please check out Radiant Historia. Sands of Destruction. Now, I had high hopes for this game because it comes to us from Masato Kato, who was the big kahuna behind Chrono Cross, had a significant input on Chrono Trigger. So many games that mean so much to me, Masato Kato was heavily involved in. So I don't know if it's maybe my expectations got out of hand, but when I actually sat down to play this 15 years ago, I don't know. It just didn't click with me. I think that I probably need to go back and give it another chance because the concept is great. I love the character designs, the music, obviously. Yasunori Mitsuda, you can't go wrong. I don't know. I need to give it another chance, and I picked it up because I fully intend to at some point. But having already played it, it's earned its spot in the pile of pride. It's just one that I think I need to spend a little more time with. Another game that's getting a re-release very soon, and I'm very excited about, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. This is a phenomenal game. I don't even know how to really explain what this is. It's an adventure game, so it's not an action game. You're not required to do all sorts of feats of action. So if you're more of a casual gamer, more of a cozy gamer, I feel like this is going to be up your alley because it is so enjoyable on so many levels. You essentially are playing a ghost, and as a ghost, you can possess various inanimate objects. And you can then manipulate those objects in certain ways to make things happen. So it's a puzzle game in that you are trying to figure out what you need to do to advance each scene. You're not solving puzzles like, I need to get this ball into this hole so that this door opens. It's not that kind of a puzzle game. It's more like you need to figure out how to influence the environment to make the living characters in the scene do the things you need them to do to progress the story. The animations are so charming. The story is excellent. There's twists in here that you just will not see coming, and they make perfect sense, and they're amazing. Definitely pick this up on the Switch if you have not played it on the DS. It is very, very well worth your time. Next up, I've got Super Mario 64 DS, which is the remake, port, I guess it's a remake because it has a lot of new stuff, of Super Mario 64 to the Nintendo DS. It's got new courses, it's got new mini games. There's so much stuff crammed into this little Nintendo DS cart. And as a Mario 64 remake, it's pretty fantastic. I'm not crazy, obviously, about playing it on the Nintendo DS. Its lack of a thumbstick really makes 3D movement not feel great. But given what it does, I think that it's a pretty great game and definitely worth having in a collection. Mario Kart DS. What do you say about a Mario Kart game? It's not as good as Mario Kart 8. That's fair, right? I don't know. It's Mario Kart on the DS. You can play it locally. You could play it, I think, online, I want to say. Didn't this have... Yeah, it had Nintendo Wi-Fi connection support. And I don't know. I think I played this for all of 15 minutes back when it came out and never picked it up again. So I don't have strong feelings about it, but it is Mario Kart and it is on the DS. Here we go. Here it is. Hotel Dusk, Room 215. Like I said, just an amazing visual novel, adventure game, puzzly sort of head scratcher. The art style is gorgeous, this sort of like sketch looking. I don't know if they used real actors to like rotoscope, but there is just some amazing character work here. You hold the DS sideways like a book, which is, I don't know, at the time especially felt so novel and interesting. Like, I felt like a real intellectual on the train commuting home from work playing Hotel Dusk Room 215. I'm sure everybody else just saw a dweeb, but I felt cool. Highly recommend you check it out if you have not already. I'll do these two together because they are sort of a piece, and they are Dragon Quest IV and Dragon Quest V. The Dragon Quest DS games are pretty phenomenal in my opinion. I love being able to play through these classic games sort of reimagined in this way. The battles, of course, are as fun as you remember Dragon Quest games being. They are, by and large, pretty simple systems, but that's kind of what Dragon Quest does. It doesn't overcomplicate things. It's gone back to the same well over and over and over for 40 years, and we're still lapping it up, so I don't blame them for sticking with what works. Dragon Quest V, I think, has probably the more interesting story overall. Dragon Quest IV does something interesting where the first part of the game you play these different chapters where you're meeting all of your main characters, and all of the secondary characters in the game are sort of the main character of their own chapter. You play through that, and then at the end they all come together into the final chapter of the game, which is sort of the whole party together going on the adventure to defeat evil. Interesting concept for sure. Dragon Quest V does things a little bit differently, where you are essentially creating a lineage. Like you meet various women, you can choose which one you want to marry. I guess she must also love you too. I'm guessing she has some agency here, I don't know. But you choose someone to marry, you have a child, and then the progeny continues and you play the game as the child. It's an interesting concept, and it's definitely pretty novel in the realm of JRPGs. I know it's not the only game to have done that, but it may be one of the first, so it's very cool, very worth checking out. Last but not least, certainly not least, if you know me at all, we have Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger DS is, oddly enough, given that I'm not crazy about handheld gaming in general, again because of these big meat claws here, Chrono Trigger DS is I think, the optimal way to experience Chrono Trigger. That may sound crazy, but the things that they add to this version of the game are fantastic. Having the dual screen set up to kind of free the main screen up for, just showing the beautiful graphics, putting all the menus and battle options and things down on the lower screen, I think that's a great move just in general. More games really should have done that back in the DS days. But the additions to the storyline that this game made, including an entirely new secret ending that involves a new final boss and ties it sort of more directly into Chrono Cross, which I appreciate, is just fantastic. I believe that this version of the game, minus obviously the dual screen setup, is what the Steam version is that you can get now on Steam. So if you want to experience these new additions to the story and the game, then I think you can check that out. I know that there was some issues with the Steam version being kind of meh in the beginning, but I'm fairly certain they've fixed most, if not all, of those problems, so definitely worth checking out now if you haven't already. It's Chrono Trigger, you can't go wrong. It's my favorite game of all time for a reason, and I will buy this game as many times as they continue to put it out. Hint, hint, Square Enix. All right, that's it. That's my DS collection. What do you guys think? Do you think that I'm missing some notable games here? especially in the JRPG category. Let me know down below the games that I need to pick up. I can think of a couple offhand, but I know there's so many games on the DS that I'm bound to be missing a few on my wish list, so I appreciate your help in helping me fill that out. Once again, if you are not subscribed and you made it this far, please consider subscribing. It would really help me out. I really appreciate it. Also, if you wouldn't mind liking the video, it really helps kind of boost the visibility of it in people's, For You pages and whatnot. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.